Welcome to Business Mastery with Don Kennedy, your quick under 45-minute dose of expert insights and strategies to make a positive impact on your business and life. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about financial planning and what you don't know to ask, what people wish you knew to ask if they were your financial planner, and what's all involved in this broad sort of, financial planning world. So I have Ed here to talk to us about it, and he's going to tell you what you need to know. So thanks so much for joining me today, Ed.
Thank you, Dawn. I really appreciate it. Yeah, this has been my whole life of helping people in this area. I'm very excited about it, and I appreciate you having me on.
I'm excited to enter this conversation and really dive in, get some, real, meat and potatoes that people can walk away with. So, can you tell everyone who you are and who you serve?
So again, my name is Ed Meek. I am a certified financial planner. I've been in the industry over 30 years. The last 20 years, I started my company 20 years ago, focusing on this very topic that we're discussing today, which is helping people thrive financially. So if you're a business owner, you have a lot of decisions to make. You probably were awesome at doing something, whether it's a service or a product, and you were great at that.
Yeah.
If you have a business right now, you'd be great at that. But along the way, when you start becoming successful, there's lots and lots of decisions we all have financially when we're running our company, and then they kind of bleed into
Right.
our personal finances, right? Because our hope is that someday we might be able to kind of build that pot of gold up to a point, whether it's some in the business, some outside the business, but build that pot of gold up in a way that could be the biggest possible, minimize the taxes. And so, yeah, that's pretty much what I do each and every day with individuals and business owners.
All right. So, let's just start from the very first question of when do we need to contact a financial planner? Is there a magic net worth? Is it a magic business amount? Is it a number of years of business? When do you need to contact a financial planner? When people have jobs and they have their 401ks, that's, very different, right? So when do we need to contact you?
I think it's probably sooner than people would think. And the reason I say that is because you could work with a financial planner, even if, let's say, you don't have a lot of money in investments that you can move around. Because sometimes people will think, a financial planner or a financial advisor, and they can be different things, would be, oh, I would want to give them some money to invest. And while that's certainly true, there is a way to kind of prepare. So, for example, we do work with people where sometimes we just charge a fee to kind of help them look at their big picture, do consulting with them to be their financial quarterback. And they might not have a lot of liquid assets to do that with, but sometimes we might help them keep an eye on their investments. So the answer to that question is once you get to a point where your business is kind of to a point where you now have above and beyond money. So we all have to be able to pay our bills, right? I started my business 20 years ago. It was not an easy thing to do. I had to take a big step back financially. I was working for a really big company. It was an awesome company. I love them. They're called Fidelity Investments. But I had to have these conversations with my wife ahead of time. I was like, hey, I'm going to take a big step back. I'm investing in myself. That's what we do when we're business owners, right? You're investing in yourself. Um, and for a while, things are going to be a little tight, which they were, and I knew that ahead of time. But then eventually they got to a point where we had a certain standard of living where we knew we had three little kids. We wanted to save a little bit for college. But once you kind of get to that point where you're like, I have something extra. Do I invest back in my business? Do I invest in myself, where I might invest into some investments? And so once you kind of get to that point, I would think it would be a good idea to at least work with a financial planner or talk to a financial planner to kind of get an idea of like what would be a good way to put me on that path, because every single decision you make from that point going forward literally can help you retire months, if not years earlier. I mean, I've had some people who are 5, 10 years out from retirement. And when we did a few different things, I told them, because we're implementing this now, you're now going to retire at least 2 years sooner than you thought. Now, people might not want to retire, right? Like, for example, me, I could probably retire earlier than then I'm going to, but I love what I'm doing. But hey, it's awesome to know that I have a business where someday at a certain point, I'll be like, "Hey, this is awesome. I love what I'm doing. I could just run the business, do certain things that I really like." So, I would say, at that point in time is probably key. And so if you're a business owner and you're already there and you don't have, and I call it a financial quarterback, and you could look at that in many ways, whether it's a coach or a quarterback, but that's probably the best time.
All right, perfect. So when you start to have that overflow from paying yourself and the business pays itself, we need to get into somebody's office, preferably yours, to talk about what the next steps are. All right, so let's unravel the mysteries of financial planning because it is much more than just managing investments. So let's talk about what actually goes into a financial plan.
Yeah. So, it's a great question, and people in their minds will think it's one or two things, but in reality, it's this holistic way of every time you have a dollar that you make, you have a financial decision to make with it. Am I going to take that in the form of income? If I do, my financial decision has been to pay the government some money in taxes. Then, when I receive that money, I now have a financial decision. Am I going to spend this on something that might be important, that might not be important? Or am I going to take this and put it into an investment where I will eventually, hopefully, have it later on down the road?
Right.
So there are so many choices of decisions along the way from when you make that dollar, and financial planning is helping you look at each of those decisions because every time I make one, it's not a good or a bad decision. It's just a trade off, right? If I keep it inside the company, I can invest it back into my business. And if that's going to give me the best rate of return, that might be a good idea. But if that's all I do for the rest of my life, then I'm taking a big risk. And the risk is I'm betting on myself. I'm betting that my company is going to do well. And you might be able to do an incredible job at that. But what if something disrupts your business? Something that you have no control over. For that reason, you may not want to take every penny and reinvest it back in your business. You may want to go, hey, I'd like to take some of those dollars and invest it into a retirement plan. In that one, I won't have to pay any taxes if it's the right kind of retirement plan. Or maybe I will take it out. I won't invest in retirement. I'll pay taxes on it. And now I can invest into something else on a personal level. So financial planning is looking at those financial decisions and then evaluating um, the end is actually where do I put the investments? But
Right.
one key area of financial planning is something called retirement planning. And that is figuring out how can I take these extra dollars and set them aside in a way where I can build up that pot of gold for retirement. And then the other areas of financial planning are areas that we want to make sure people are set up correctly. And it's something called risk management, or we call it insurance planning. That is making sure that I'm protecting myself to be able to continue my job in my company. What if something happens and I'm driving to work one day and I get disabled? I might not be able to pay my bills for a while or for a long period of time. So we want to make sure we look at, is disability insurance important? um, or other types of insurance. So what we do as financial planners is we look at, are you protected on all levels in certain ways so you could protect your business, so you could protect your personal things. Another area is tax planning. We're not accountants, so we don't like do people's taxes, but we do know a lot about working hand in hand with their accountant and setting up things in a certain way so you can minimize taxes as much as possible. Because truthfully, if you get that game down, uh, I don't claim to get way better returns on investments than other people.
Right.
It's somewhat of a commodity. The stock market's the stock market. The bond market's the bond market. Yeah, we're pretty good at it. But if I could help you minimize taxes along the way, your nest egg is going to be a lot bigger because you didn't have to pay a lot of money in taxes. So, and then the last area of financial planning is something we call estate planning. And this is making sure your business and your personal situation is set up that if you do get disabled or you need someone to help you because you can't make your financial decisions, or when you pass away, Are things going to flow to my loved ones or the people or whoever I want this to get to? Like, if you don't have this set up for your business appropriately, what happens all of a sudden? Do you have good succession plan set up, right? That's really important. Or, is your wife going to take over the business or your husband going to take over the business? Sometimes people are like, yeah, that probably wouldn't be a good idea. I'd want to make sure I've got things set up in a way. And then on a personal level, I remember when I was doing my estate planning, when my wife and I did it and our kids were a little bit younger, they were still in their teens and early 20s. And if all of a sudden something happened to me and my wife suddenly, like we went down because we were on a vacation and a plane, um, my children would get all my life insurance, some of the value of the business, some of the money that I did have investments. My 17-year-old son, while he's a really responsible 17-year-old son, it probably wouldn't be so good if he got a third of the investments, right? At
That's
that
so
time. So he got 17. That's right. So we set up trusts to say, all right, let's take care of the kids to a certain age. And then when they get to a certain age, maybe they can get some of what was going to be theirs. And then we get to another age, maybe they can get some. And so that's estate planning. So I know it was a lot in what you asked, but financial planning is kind of holistically looking at all these different areas and making sure you're kind of set up appropriately. It's not something you have to constantly do over and over and over, like every time you meet with a financial quarterback. But it is if you get these things in place, you can kind of just tweak them along the way.
Yeah. All right. So it also sounds like you have the expertise to do that second and third order kind of effect looking down the road. What if, what if? As business owners, I think we're pretty good at the second and third order effects of business decisions, but I don't think that many of us, most of us, me, anybody has maybe that ability to do second and third order effect sort of visionary looking down the road things. On the personal side, I think it's definitely something that everyone listening in should consider whether or not that has been done, and if they're in a place where they feel like everything is at least plotted out on a map if they're working through, actually putting all the places, in the map, right? So at least we're plotting out where we're going. We're going, from here to here. So amazing. All right. So let's talk about something that will probably prevent people from coming to a financial planner because they think they have to be rich and it costs $1 million and you need to have $1 million in investments to have your own financial planner versus, just doing something like Acorn or whatever it is. So let's talk about what does it cost to sit down and why that is such a wise investment.
Yeah, so you literally could be someone who's just like out of college, just getting started, and you can still work with a financial planner. So there's certain financial planners that are set up where they charge like an hourly fee or a yearly fee, and they could provide a service for you that might be you only need, an hour or two a year to kind of get you going. And then as your life gets more complex, you get married, you have children, you have college, you have retirement to think about. As it gets more complex, then, it will cost more money. So where we fit into helping people is once they've kind of started accumulating some money and or they've got a business and they know they want to eventually extract maybe some value out of the money along the way, or helping them to make sure their business is set up to be able to extract the most value when they do want to sell it down the road. So that's where we come in. So what we do is, as I mentioned, we work in two ways. One, we have a fee where we will charge somebody. It's usually like between $5,000 and $10,000 in a year, and they get this comprehensive kind of consulting of their business and personal and get it all set up. Or if they do have investments where we can invest the money, then we will charge a fee on that, and we'll ongoing kind of provide these services. And so that's where we fit in. But there's these other types of financial planners that you can pay. Like there's a group that's in the town that I'm in here, and they're a perfect complement for me. So sometimes if somebody's not a good fit, I'm like, hey, go see this group. They're down the street. They can kind of help you once you get to the point where we could step in and help you, then we might be able to take over. So it really just depends on where you're at in life, but I would suggest that somebody should talk to, a financial planner to whenever they like. I got my niece reaching out to me. She's in college right now, so I help her parents, and they know that Uncle Ed is the money guy,
Right.
and they keep asking their parents, and they're like, "You should just call Uncle Ed." So, she's reaching out to me, she's got money, she's been a super good saver, she's worked a lot in high school, she's got I don't know what she has. She has some money sitting in a savings account, it's not giving her any kinda interest. So, I'm just gonna use this as an opportunity to educate her on, "Hey, we could get it into a higher paying money market account if at some point in time when you finish school, which will be soon, and you want to invest some of this, here's some options."
Yeah.
So we provide that kind of service for if we help clients, like if somebody becomes a client of ours, they get this umbrella opportunity where any children or grandchildren that want to use us as a resource, they can kind of use us that way. So, I mean, she's also my niece, so even if I'd help her parents, I would still help her. But so I would say any age, it just depends on what level. And then some companies like Fidelity Investments, where I used to work, they do have great services where you can walk into one of their retail branches or a Schwab, and they have people that can help you do that as well.
Okay, perfect. So now let's unravel the CFP and some of the different designations that people need to know about. And then also, how do you find that good fit? What are we asking? What are we looking for?
Yeah, so a CFP is the most common degree that's like an advanced degree in our field. So you can become a financial advisor by passing some various tests that they ask you. You have to learn and understand investments and things of that nature. Well, CFP is kind of like getting a master's in the industry. And I don't know what the statistic was when I first got started. I got mine in '96. So that was, about 30 years ago. Now and at the time, there's like 10% of the financial advisors had it. I think it might be up to 30% or about a third of financial advisors have it. I would encourage people to, if they're going to work with a financial advisor, most often try to find one that also is a certified financial planner. Because when you become a certified financial planner, it requires you to have an area of expertise in each of those areas that I mentioned. There are 5 areas. The insurance risk planning is one, tax planning, estate planning, investment planning, and retirement planning. And then the CFP, which I just had recently, every 2 years, they require you to continue on and have continuing education hours. So we have to have another 30 hours every 2 years, plus another 2 hours of what's called ethics education training, meaning the CFP is very coveted in that it makes sure you put the client ahead of yourself, and it makes sure you get this continuing ongoing education. And so it makes you stay on top of what's going on in the industry. So I believe anybody who wants help in this area should use a CFP. There are some other degrees in our industry. The other most common one, which is slightly different than the CFP, is one called the CFA, and that stands for Chartered Financial Analyst. So in my company, I have another 9 employees, and one of them is our investment manager. He's a gentleman who got his CFA, it was about a year ago, and they are like they're way smarter than me. Like they're very analytical,
Yeah.
and a CFA is great, but they're not the one who's doing the financial planning. They're the one who's studying all the investments. So he complements me really well. And so when people want to discuss, roll up their sleeves, and get really in detail when it comes to the investments, I'm pretty knowledgeable about a lot of that. But when we want to start going into the nitty gritty, then that's when I'll bring in a CFA. And so I would say for what we're talking about today, the CFP is what you'd want to look for with somebody. And those are the key ones.
Okay, perfect. And then just to round this out, you also hold like securities licenses and all those things too, right? So
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the industry certification that you have, you're also licensed in the areas that you advise in.
Yeah, it's mandatory. Like if you come to a company like ours, we're what's called a registered investment advisory company. And that means we're independent. We don't We're not tied to, we don't get commissions from like other groups. We're independent. We're what's called a fiduciary. That's something that I would encourage people to look at using. A fiduciary is someone that has to put the client's best interests first, always. And that's if your fee structure is set up like ours, where we get paid a fee from our client, that means we're not getting fees from other sources that would cause us to not be able to put our client first. Because if we're getting commissions in various ways, then what we're going to do inherently as human beings is kind of gravitate towards something that might pay me a little bit more.
Right.
Not necessarily always the worst option. So I'm not saying people who aren't fiduciaries don't do a great job. There's some that do. But when you're a fiduciary, it takes that all away. And, just like what you were asking, we have to have, this one degree. It's called a Series 66 that lets us practice, what we do. And then there's some other ones, a Series 7 that if you're a brokerage degree, and you work at a brokerage firm, which we're not, we don't need to be, then they need to have that license as well. Like my son, he works at Fidelity Investments in the same kind of role that I used to, and he has that degree and he has the Series 66 at a Fidelity branch.
Right. Okay. So yeah, this is not just like you take one test. You are licensed in the sub areas and you're licensed overall. And then as you said, in your practice area, you have another person with a different license that complements. It's an analyst. So this is really comprehensive to get to this place of certified financial planning. And so, when you say the quarterback of the team, you've already played Division 1 and you're in the NFL. Basically, to help with that.
I actually have this chart that I created. This is probably around 7 or 8 years ago, where sometimes we'll get people who come to us and they're wondering, like, do we need to use you? Do we not to use someone like you? And we're not the right fit for everybody. But I have this chart, and on this chart, it asks a variety of questions. And I tell people, if you cannot say yes to each of these questions, then you should at least consider using someone like a financial quarterback or a financial planner. And the questions are, do I have the time? You were talking about kind of these layers, these levels, like, the people we're talking to right now, you and me, Don. I mean, these are sharp, astute people, right? But they're awesome at their business. They're awesome at some other things. But to be able to have the time to know and understand and make all the financial decisions that we help people do, it's tough to say I have the time, but some people do. The second one is, do I have the desire? Is this something that, like, I really think I would like doing?
Yeah.
So, that narrows it down some. And then the third one is, do I have the aptitude, kind of the skill set? It, you know, the people we're talking to, they certainly could eventually get the skill set, right? Because they're business owners. I mean, they're sharp people. But you have to go and you have to train yourself this, or you have to go and get these degrees or get your CFP. And so that narrows it down even more. And then do I have kind of this is the key one that is a little bit more gray, but do I have like the emotional, psychological makeup to kind of do all of this in all various conditions? The day we're talking, Dawn, you probably noticed this before we got on, but today is the day that Trump came out and told us about his regime and what he's doing with tariffs. The stock market, as we speak, is down 4% today. Okay. It's been dwindling down over the last couple of months after a couple great years. But I guarantee you, I'm going to be getting some phone calls if I haven't already while you and I are having the podcast, because clients, most of my clients I've been working with for a long time, so they're usually like pretty good because we got them set up in a way where they're going to be okay no matter what happens with the stock market over the short term or medium term. But you have to have this psychological makeup of being like, man, should I like get out? What should I do? Like, I'm 3 years away from retirement. Well, if you're working with a financial quarterback, you have that all set up. Like, they should have everything taken care of. And so, unless you can answer yes to all those questions, then you should at least consider using someone to help you figure this out.
Right. And very good point about the emotions of your own situation, your own money, your own, drafting your own estate plan or your will or any of those things. They can be very emotional, and not having another person walk you through some of those things, you could make decisions on emotion that maybe, again, talking about those second and third order effects, you didn't know to look for.
Yeah, well, one of the early questions you asked is, "When should I do this?" And I had said one answer. Another answer is, if you're even, like, thinking about this, then you probably should. And what happens is people put this kinda stuff off, they might think, you don't know how many people when you start working with me, then I'm like, start asking questions. All right, do you have a will? Well, like, a third of the time they don't have a will. And if they do, then it was like they did their will when they were 25 and they had their first child. Do you have power of attorneys? And so
Right.
this is the kind of stuff that we kind of in our mind know we need to do this, but because it's so daunting, because we think it's just so big of a deal, we put it off. Now, the one thing I will tell you is if you find a good financial planner to help you do this, they're going to help you do it in chunks and segments. We're going to take care of, like, when people come to me, we take care of like the pressing need that they want to take care of right then. And then eventually we'll get these other things in order. And if they're diligent, within 6 months or a year, we got them in a really, really good place. And like I said, then we're just tweaking and everything's at a good place. Then you kind of exhale. You can kind of have peace about it, right? People want to have peace of mind around a lot of things. And if you find a good financial quarterback, you will get peace of mind in a way that allows you to kind of frees you up to be great at your business, enjoy other things without worrying about it anymore.
Yeah, fantastic. These are such important things I don't think people want to talk about because they either think they have to be super high net worth to have a financial planner, or it's an uncomfortable and maybe sometimes intimidating uh, thought conversation that I need to do this because I can tell you that most people go to maybe an attorney to get a will, and they'll just draft the legal paperwork, which is fine. They might have a CPA to do taxes, but there's no one single coordinator who is putting that together when you do it that way. And this is really, very valuable conversation for people to see this in the light that it should be seen. What do you think people should ask when searching for a financial planner, and what would you want to know about them to make sure you're a good fit?
Yeah, I think the first one is we've really kind of gone around and around on this to a certain extent, but I don't think people really think of it this way is um, am I personally, because a lot of everybody is their own financial quarterback to a certain extent.
Mhm.
Um, am I the best financial quarterback for me and my, family situation going forward? And if you can't like resoundly answer yes, then you should consider looking into at least hiring, even short term, someone to kind of get you on track.
Right, right.
Uh,
I mean, as far as interviewing you or being a good fit, because you mentioned that you have to have a good fit with your financial planner. So, what makes a good fit as far as for your firm or a different firm, when you're doing like a client match, right? So, what do they need to ask, or what do you need to know about them other than you're licensed, you're certified, right? So you're saying that there are some clients that are just not a good fit to work with you. So how do we figure out what the fit is? How do we interview a financial planner, and how do you interview your clients to make sure that you're a good.
yeah, I would think beforehand, what you want to do is just kind of make a list, like make a list out of like what are all the things that financially, and I alluded to all these different things. Like, what are all the different things that I feel like, make a list in 2 columns. Are we in good shape when it comes to our estate plan, like wills and trusts and power of attorneys? Yes or no? Are we in good shape where we feel like we have a tax consultant or strategist, not an accountant? I And some accountants are awesome at this, so I'm not saying accountants can't be,
Sure.
but you don't know how often I have clients that are like, "Yeah, I don't even like my accountant who does my taxes, but never asks me any questions, never has like, are you utilizing this? Are you taking advantage of that?" Especially with the audience you and I are talking about. You could do it to a certain extent if you're not a business owner, but when you're a business owner, it opens up all of these opportunities. Am I taking advantage and planning from a tax consult, a planning way that's super important. And so making this list of each of these areas, taxes, insurance, estate planning. Do I have some people do have investments already, the investment in their company, investments in retirement plans or outside. Do I feel like yes or no, I've got a good grasp and I'm taking care of these things. And so there's going to be some no's, right? I mean, you're not even going to do this if you feel like you're in great shape yourself. But there's not a lot of people out there that feel like they've got a good grasp of this. So get an idea of what am I looking for, and then when you reach out and you talk to someone in a position like mine, is ask them questions of what is it that based upon my situation, like what is it that you could help me with? And if it's somebody who can comprehensively help you in each of these areas, and that's what you're looking for, then it might be a good fit. But you also have to say, all right, right up front, like ask them, how do you work? How do you get paid? You don't wanna, like, go, "Oh, man, I think this person," I don't wanna be in a conversation with someone for 30, 45 minutes, and then later on mention to them, "Oh, here's how I work and here's how much it is," and they're like, "Oh," "that's not
Right.
gonna work for us," right? And so I think that would be key, and if you're looking for someone local, you may wanna just, type in, local financial advisors or local certified financial planners. The great thing is, in today's world, especially in the United States, unless you, like, really feel like you have to see this person, like, physically, it's not that common anymore, you don't have to. You can work with people anywhere in the country. You could find, like, someone great anywhere in the country. I have clients all over the Uni almost I'd say maybe half of the states. I work with somebody in half of the different states all over the country. So I think those would be good places to get started.
Yeah, I don't think that's well known. I didn't know that you could work in any of the states. I thought there were state specific licenses that kept you in a particular place, like an attorney or some other, specialties that have state specific licensure. So you can work with anybody anywhere.
That's right. Yeah. In fact, I have some
Yep.
clients from some clients overseas, I mean, they were in the United States, but they're not anymore and they're working overseas. So I got to make sure, like my client in Hong Kong, I just come in early and I meet with her at 8 o'clock in the morning and it's nighttime for her. And then she goes to bed after we meet. So
Right.
it just depends.
Right. Amazing. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for what we're going to call unraveling the mysteries of the certified financial planner, why you need one, how you should work with them, what you need to consider. And where can people find you, follow you, reach out to you, and, learn more about your company?
Yeah, so, my website is so the name of my company is called Edge Financial Advisors, and our website email address is edgefa.com. And also connected to that is I also have my own podcast. We've been doing it, me and my partner James, we've been doing it for, close to 5 years now, maybe 4.5 years. And we have, I don't know, 55 episodes or so on all the different stuff you and I talked about. Like we just try to come up with an episode, maybe very specifically about one of these areas. A couple of them are kind of like I think the last one we did was what are questions you should ask your financial advisor. We have another one on what is financial planning. So kind of the stuff you and I just did, we kind of did a one on that. And so I encourage people that if ever interested, you can kind of go there, get to know us a little bit better, and then hopefully we can even answer some of the questions that you might have on a specific area. So those are the best ways. And then my email address is ed@edgefa.com. If you want to reach out to me directly, I'd be glad to answer any questions, help out in any way. But you can get to know me through those places. I'm certainly on LinkedIn as well.
Perfect. And we're going to put all that down in the description on YouTube and in the show notes on all of the audio podcasts. So you can find and reach out to Ed. And thank you. We will put your podcast in there as well. And go check it out and get your questions answered. And again, if you listen to this episode and you realize that you've got some gaps, I would encourage everyone listening or watching to try to figure out how to get those gaps filled. So it's very important. Well, thank you so much for being here today. It was an excellent conversation, and I think you really did a great job with unraveling the mystery of financial planning.
Thanks, Don. Yeah, I appreciate the time.
All right. We'll talk to you next time on the next episode of the Mastery Podcast. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to DawnKKennedy.com, and you can now check us out on YouTube as well as, of course,
any of your favorite platforms that host podcasts. Take care.